Jesse Pinkman is the most tragic character in Breaking Bad, not because he dies, but because he survives. Across 5 seasons of Breaking Bad and then El Camino, we watch a bright, goofy, soft-hearted kid get crushed by the world around him until there's almost nothing left. And the cruelest part? He never wanted any of it. He never asked for this life. He never chose to be hardened. He was dragged there, inch by forces larger than himself, and by one man in particular who should have protected him instead of using him. What makes Jesse's story so uniquely painful is that it's not the story of a good man who became bad. It's the story of a good man who was used up by a bad one. Walter White gets to have a transformation arc. He gets to become Heisenberg. He gets agency, ambition, and the dark thrill of becoming the villain of his own story. Jesse gets none of that. Jesse's arc is not transformation. It's erosion. It's watching someone slowly lose the very things that made them worth watching in the first place, and then asking whether any of it survived. Welcome back to Mind Over Matter. Today we'll be covering the full evolution of Jesse Pinkman, how Walter White, the drug world, and Jesse's own crushing guilt transformed him from a harmless burnout into a traumatized survivor fighting desperately for the last pieces of his humanity. This is not just a story about drugs or crime or the consequences of bad decisions. It's a story about what happens when the world systematically punishes you for being human, for feeling things, for caring when caring gets you killed. If you enjoy the video, please subscribe to support my small channel. It means more than you know. Who Jesse was before the world got to him. To understand how far Jesse falls, you have to understand where he starts. And the show is careful, almost gentle, about establishing exactly who Jesse Pinkman is before everything breaks. When we first meet him, he's climbing out of a bedroom window in his underwear, trying to escape a drug bust, and it's played for laughs. That's intentional. The writers want you to smile at him. They want you to find him a little ridiculous, a little lovable, the way you'd feel about a younger cousin who makes bad decisions but means well. He's not threatening. He's not cool. He is, in the most genuine sense of the word, a goofball. He plays video games with the volume too loud. He buys gadgets he doesn't need. He gives himself nicknames. He uses slang that doesn't quite land. He smokes with his friends and acts like a man with a plan, when it's very clear he has never had a plan in his life. He's 22 years old, but he carries himself like a kid who peaked at 17 and never quite figured out what comes next. But here's what the show is quietly doing underneath all of that comedy. It's showing you Jesse's actual character, not the persona, not the front, the person. And the person is warm, he's funny in a way that's entirely unintentional and somehow more charming for it. He's gentle with people he trusts. He has a conscience that shows up even when it's inconvenient, even when it costs him. He hates violence. This is established almost immediately, and it becomes the central tension of his entire story. Jesse is someone who, when faced with a physical threat, panics, he bluffs, he talks too loud and backs away slowly. He is not built for the world he's in, and on some level, he knows it. He cares about children in a way that feels almost instinctive, like a reflex he never learned to suppress. He makes art, actual, considered, thoughtful art, in a journal he keeps private, because vulnerability is terrifying when you've been let down as many times as Jesse has. And most importantly, most fatally, he wants approval. He craves it the way people crave oxygen when there isn't enough of it. His parents gave up on him. School gave up on him. The world, as far as Jesse can tell, has written him off as a failure and moved on. So when Walter White shows up and says, in so many words, "I choose you," Jesse grabs onto that with both hands. He doesn't know yet that the hand he's grabbing belongs to the person who will dismantle him piece by piece. He just knows that someone finally sees him. And that is enough. That is more than enough. That is everything. The relationship with Walt, a father figure with a hidden knife. Before we get into the specific traumas, we need to spend real time on the relationship that shapes all of them, because nothing about Jesse's story makes sense without understanding what Walt means to him. Jesse and Walt are not equals. The show presents them as partners, and for a while, Jesse even believes that framing, but from the very first episode, the power dynamic is completely lopsided. Walt has the knowledge, the leverage, and the authority. Jesse has the street connections and the desperate need to feel useful. Walt knows exactly how to exploit that need, and he does from day one with the kind of surgical precision that would be impressive if it weren't so monstrous. Their early dynamic has a mentor-student quality that feels almost wholesome in those first episodes. Walt corrects Jesse's chemistry. Jesse shows Walt the ropes of the drug world. They bicker like family. They save each other's lives. There's real warmth there, and that's what makes it complicated, because Walt's feelings for Jesse are never entirely performance. He does, in his own deeply broken way, care about Jesse. He just cares about himself more. He always cares about himself more. The pattern repeats itself throughout the series with exhausting consistency. Jesse gets close to leaving. Walt pulls him back. Jesse starts to figure something out. Walt redirects him. Jesse's grief becomes a liability. Walt manages it. And each time, Walt uses Jesse's love for him as the primary instrument of control. He knows Jesse wants a father. He knows Jesse will forgive almost anything if it comes wrapped in enough approval and affection. So, that's exactly what Walt offers, in exactly the doses required to keep Jesse compliant, and not a drop more. This is coercive control. It doesn't always look like abuse from the outside, because it's built on a foundation of genuine emotion. Jesse's love for Walt is real. Walt's manipulation of that love is also real. Both things are true, and that's precisely why Jesse can never fully escape it until the very end. Because you can't logically argue your way out of something that bypassed logic entirely and went straight to the place where you keep your need to be loved. Jane and the first crack in everything. Jesse's first major transformation begins with Jane Margolis. And it begins with something simple and almost embarrassing in its ordinariness. He falls in love. For the first time in a very long time, maybe the first real time ever, someone looks at Jesse Pinkman and likes what they see. Not because they need something from him, not because he's useful, just because he's him. Jane is complicated. She's in recovery, and the relationship pulls her back toward her addiction, and the show doesn't pretend otherwise. Their love story is beautiful and reckless, and probably doomed even without Walt's interference. But it's real. What they have is genuinely, unmistakably real. Jesse feels it in a way that wakes something up in him, some creative, hopeful, ambitious part of himself that had gone entirely quiet. She introduces him to art, to travel, to the idea that his life could look different from the inside out. She shows him Georgia O'Keeffe paintings and talks about choosing who you want to be, rather than just becoming whoever the world decided you are. For Jesse, who has spent his entire adult life being told who he is by everyone around him, this is not just romantic, it's revolutionary. And then she dies. She overdoses on heroin that Jesse brought back into her life, a fact he will never forgive himself for. And she chokes while lying next to him. And Jesse wakes up in the morning and finds her gone, and his world ends for the first time. But here is the layer that Jesse never gets to know, the layer the audience carries like a wound for the rest of the series. Walter White stood in the doorway of that room. He saw Jane choking. He considered saving her, and then he decided not to, because Jane was dangerous. Jane was pushing Jesse to take his money and run, and that threatened Walt's control over his partner and his product. So Walt let her die. He stood in the doorway and watched a young woman choke to death and calculated whether saving her was worth the inconvenience. This is Walter White, and Jesse loved him. Jesse's spiral after Jane's death is one of the most painful things the show depicts because it's so recognizable. He doesn't become violent, he doesn't become cold, he becomes absent. He disappears into addiction and then into the squalor of a rock-bottom existence, surrounded by strangers who are just as lost as he is. He stops being a person and becomes a wound walking around in a person's shape. And Walt, the man who caused it, sweeps in to save him and bring him back into the business. Jesse is grateful. Of course he's grateful. He has no idea, he will never have any idea. Gail Bowditcher and the death of innocence. If Jane's death cracked Jesse open, what happens with Gail Bowditcher breaks something that never fully repairs. Gail is everything Jesse isn't, at least on the surface. He's educated, gentle, scientifically precise, and genuinely philosophical. He makes extraordinary coffee. He listens to folk music and seems to genuinely believe in the inherent beauty of chemistry as an art form. He is not a violent man. He is barely even a criminal in any meaningful sense. He's a chemist who made some choices and ended up in Walt's orbit, and he is, by every measure, innocent of anything deserving what happens to him. Walt, in a desperate act of self-preservation, driven entirely by his own ego and paranoia, engineers a situation where Jesse has to kill Gail or Walt dies. That's the choice. Kill this innocent man or lose the one person who has given your life structure and meaning. It is an impossible choice, and Walt knows it, and Walt makes it anyway because Walt has decided that his survival justifies any cost, especially when someone else is paying it. Jesse knocks on Gail's door and looks him in the eyes and pulls the trigger. And something in Jesse Pinkman dies in that moment. Not metaphorically, something real and irreplaceable goes out. The aftermath is excruciating in its quietness. Jesse doesn't have a breakdown on screen. He doesn't confess or collapse. He just goes numb in that particular way that people go numb when the thing that happened is too large to process in real time. He fills his house with strangers and music and drugs and noise, not to celebrate anything, but to drown out the silence, because silence means he has to sit with what he did. He can't cook in the lab without dissociating. He can't look at himself clearly. He becomes someone almost unrecognizable. Not meaner, not harder, just emptier. The light that Jane had started to rekindle goes completely out. And this is the moment, right here, where the show definitively answers the question of whether Jesse could ever become Walt. He couldn't. He couldn't then, and he can't ever. Because Walt orders a man's death and immediately begins calculating his next move, Jesse pulls a trigger under duress and never recovers. They are not the same. They were never the same. Walt chose Jesse as a partner, partly because Jesse's conscience was useful. It made him controllable, and partly, perhaps, because Walt recognized in Jesse the empathy he himself had excised long ago and couldn't help but be drawn to it, even as he destroyed it. The accumulation, blow after blow after blow. What follows in the middle seasons of the show is a sustained, almost relentless campaign of trauma against a person who has very few defenses left. Jesse gets beaten by Tuco in a scene that sets the template. Jesse is physically brave in short bursts, but fundamentally not equipped for a world that runs on violence. He gets beaten by Hank, a DEA agent who does it because he can, because Jesse is a criminal and criminals don't get to complain. And every physical beating lands on top of the emotional ones, compounding, pressing Jesse further into himself. Then there's Drew Sharp, a 10-year-old boy on a dirt bike who crests a hill at exactly the wrong moment and sees exactly the wrong thing. Todd shoots him without a flicker of hesitation, and everyone in the group immediately moves into damage control mode except Jesse. Jesse screams. He is the only one who screams, and that detail is more important than almost anything else in the episode. In a group of men who have all made the calculation that this is just business, Jesse is still someone for whom a child's death is unbearable. That instinct, That inability to simply move on is both the best thing about him and the thing that makes him suffer more than anyone around him. He carries Drew Sharp. He carries Gail. He carries Jane. He carries all of them all the time, and the weight just keeps increasing with nowhere to put it down. Brock is poisoned. The little boy Jesse had come to love like a son the child of Andrea, a woman Jesse cares about with the same soft, devoted, unpracticed love he gives everyone he lets past his defenses, is nearly killed. Jesse figures out Walt was behind it. He is ready to burn everything down. He goes to Walt's house with a gas can and fury and the absolute conviction that he finally knows the truth. And Walt talks him down again. Because Walt always talks him down. Because Walt knows exactly which emotional levers to pull and in what order and with how much pressure. And Jesse, who needs so badly for Walt to not be what he is, lets himself be convinced. Again. This is what abuse looks like when the abuser is intelligent and the victim loves them. It's not dramatic, it's quiet, it's a conversation. It's being made to feel like your instincts are wrong and your perceptions are distorted, and the person who is hurting you is actually the only one who truly understands you. And then Andrea is murdered, shot on her own front porch while Jesse watches from inside a van, chained, unable to move or look away or do anything at all. This scene is almost too cruel to watch, and it's meant to be. It's the point at which the show is no longer just depicting Jesse's suffering. It's depicting the weaponization of that suffering, the deliberate destruction of every person Jesse loved to ensure his total compliance. Jesse cries out and is immediately silenced. He has to keep breathing. He has to keep existing. He has no choice. By the time we reach the final stretch of Season 5, Jesse Pinkman is living in a cage. Literally, he's chained to a mechanism in an underground lab and forced to cook the same product that has devastated his entire life for men who murdered people he loved under conditions that constitute torture. He does not smile. He barely speaks. His eyes are empty in a way that is deeply uncomfortable to look at for too long. He looks 10 years older than the kid who climbed out of that bedroom window in the pilot. This is what layered, sustained, unrelenting trauma does to a person. It doesn't make them evil or strong or stoic. It hollows them out. Jesse Pinkman becomes a walking inventory of loss. Every scar and empty stare and flinch a record of the things that were taken from him, one by a world that was never going to reward him for being the kind of person he was. The finale, refusing to become the monster. In the finale, Jesse finally gets the gun. Walt hands it to him, and for a long, loaded moment, Jesse considers it. He has earned the right to consider it more than almost any character in television history. The list of what Walt has taken from him is staggering. Jane, Andrea, Brock's innocence, his own innocence, years of his life, the version of himself that believed good things were possible. But Jesse drops the gun. He tells Walt to do it himself if he wants it done. And that refusal is the most important thing Jesse Pinkman ever does. It would have been so easy, narratively, to let Jesse pull the trigger. It would have been cathartic and dark and fitting in a grim Breaking Bad kind of way. But it would have been wrong, because Jesse killing Walt in cold blood would mean Walt had finally won, had finally turned Jesse into him, had finally completed the transformation that he began the day he knocked on Jesse's door with a proposition and the mask. Jesse dropping that gun is not weakness. It is the hardest thing he has ever done. It is the one moment in the entire series where Jesse Pinkman is completely, unmistakably free. And then there's the mod. Two men standing in the wreckage of everything they were to each other, acknowledging the bond without pretending it was clean or good or worth what it cost. Walt nods, Jesse nods back. It is not forgiveness. It is not absolution. It is not even, really, goodbye. It is two people recognizing the full, terrible weight of what they shared and choosing, for one final moment to be honest about it. And then Jesse runs, and he screams as he drives away. A scream that is grief and relief and rage and joy and sheer animal survival instinct all tangled together. And it is one of the most emotionally true moments in the entire run of the series. Jesse Pinkman, who has been a prisoner in one form or another for years, is free. For the first time, maybe for the first time ever. El Camino, what survival actually looks like. El Camino is where Jesse's story earns its ending, and it deserves more serious attention than it often gets in the discourse around Breaking Bad. The film opens on Jesse after his escape, and it wastes no time establishing the state of him. He is not triumphant. He is not relieved. He is a man in full-blown crisis, running on adrenaline and trauma responses and the muscle memory of surviving things that should have killed him. He flinches at unexpected sounds. He wakes up screaming. He cannot fully trust anyone, not even the people who are trying to help him, because trust is a mechanism that has been so thoroughly broken in him that operating it at all takes enormous conscious effort. But El Camino also shows us something else. It shows us that the years of suffering have not only broken Jesse, they have, in specific hard-won ways, forged him. He is smarter now, more strategic, more capable of thinking 3 steps ahead. He reads people differently, with the careful wariness of someone who has been manipulated by a genius and learned the hard way what that looks like from the inside. He navigates an extremely dangerous situation, recovering money, dealing with Todd's ghastly associates, trying to establish a new identity with a resourcefulness and cold clarity that the Jesse of Season 1 simply did not possess. And through all of it, he still refuses to become something he's not. He refuses to kill unless he has absolutely no choice. And even when he does have no choice, it costs him. It always costs him. That conscience, battered, scarred, held together with whatever is left, never leaves. It is the one thing no one ever managed to take from Jesse Pinkman. Not Walt, not the drug world, not months of captivity, not years of accumulated grief. The conscience remains. He fights not for money, not for power, not for revenge against the people who hurt him, though God knows he would be entitled to it. He fights for peace, for a quiet life in a cold place where no one knows his name and the air is clean and the past is far enough away that maybe on a good day he can almost pretend it belongs to someone else. And when he reaches Alaska, he smiles. It is a small smile. It is tired and fragile and complicated and entirely real. It is the first genuine smile we have seen on Jesse Pinkman's face in years. And after everything, after Jane and Gail and Drew Sharp and Andrea and the cage and the chains and Walt, it hits like a gut punch disguised as a sunrise. Jesse Pinkman made it. Broken, scarred, carrying more than any person should have to carry, but alive, present, still himself, at least in the ways that matter most. What Aaron Paul brought to Jesse. It would be genuinely wrong to talk about Jesse Pinkman's evolution without acknowledging what Aaron Paul did with the role, because the character only works as well as he does because of a performance that is, without exaggeration, one of the greatest in the history of American television. Paul had to do something enormously difficult across the run of this show. He had to play the same person becoming a fundamentally different person while making both versions feel continuous and real. The Jesse of Season 1 and the Jesse of Season 5 are almost unrecognizable from each other, and yet there's a through line, a core, that Paul maintained with extraordinary consistency. The warmth, the conscience, the desperate need to be loved. Those things never left, even as everything else changed. And the physical transformation he brought to the role, the way Jesse's body language shifts from loose and impulsive to guarded and exhausted, the way his eyes change, the way his silences become heavier and longer, is the kind of acting that you absorb before you intellectually process it. He won 3 Emmy Awards for the role, and should have won more, but more than any award, what Paul gave to Jesse Pinkman was dignity. He never played Jesse as a joke. Even in the early comedic episodes, there was always an underlying seriousness, a respect for the character's interior life that elevated every scene he was in. And in the later seasons, in the darkest material, he brought a humanity to Jesse's suffering that made it impossible to look away, because you were watching someone you cared about going through something unbearable. And Paul made sure you never forgot that Jesse deserved better. Why Jesse's story still matters. Jesse Pinkman is, at his core, a story about what we do with sensitivity in a world that has no use for it. About what happens to people who feel too much in environments designed for people who feel nothing. He is a character study in the cost of conscience and the resilience of goodness under sustained assault. His story resonates because it's not really a fantasy. The specific details are extreme. Drug empires and explosions and elaborate criminal machinery. But the emotional architecture is entirely recognizable. Most of us have, at some point, loved someone who used that love against us. Most of us have, at some point, been punished for caring too much in a context that rewarded not caring at all. Most of us have, at some point, had to decide whether the things that hurt us were going to define us, or whether we were going to carry them without letting them win. Jesse chooses to carry them without letting them win, barely, at enormous cost, with no guarantee that it works. But he chooses it, and after everything, after every single thing that was done to him, and every person he lost, and every version of himself that got left behind somewhere along the way, that choice is not small. That choice is the whole point. Jesse Pinkman doesn't get a happy ending. He gets a chance. He gets survival and a clean start, an open country, and clean air and a new name, and the possibility, however fragile, of a life that belongs to him. And after everything that was taken from him, after everything he endured and lost and carried, he earned every inch of it. He is the emotional core of Breaking Bad, the moral compass of a show that is often described as Walt's story, but is really, if you're watching closely, Jesse's. He is the one who feels everything, the one who carries the weight of every death, every wrong choice, every compromise with darkness. He is the one who, through all of it, never entirely lets go of the person he was when this started. And that is the most extraordinary thing about him. Not that he survived, that after everything designed to destroy it, his humanity survived too, battered and scarred and small, but present. Still there, still his. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing. It genuinely helps this channel grow more than you might realize. And I read every comment. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.